Hello dear students, my friends and to all my viewers. I am Dr. Santosh Patil, Professor, Department of General and Minimal Access Surgery. Today I will be addressing on septic shock. In my previous two classes, I have discussed in detail about the shock in general and the second topic was hemorrhagic shock. Today I will be discussing an aspect of shock, that is septic shock. It's important for a surgeon to understand the basics of the septic shock because a surgeon can encounter a septic shock in a casualty or a emergency room, which can be a patient of a general surgery that is related to complication. For example, it can be a duodenal perforation or intestinal obstruction. If not diagnosed, there are chances the patient may go from simple systemic inflammatory response to a septic shock, where the mortality rates are very high. The second reason every doctor should be aware of septic shock is the present situation in the world, that is the coronavirus, because it is one of the cause of a sepsis, or what we call as a infective cause that leads to septicemia followed by septicemic shock in no time. So I'll be addressing on septic shock. By definition, it is dysfunction of the endothelium and the vasculature. Whenever there is an injury or insult to a tissue, the action starts in septic shock at the vascular level. Once there is dysfunction of the endothelium and vasculature, the circulatory inflammatory mediators and cells are mobilized towards the site of the insult. Then this insult or circulatory inflammatory mediator mobilization is also seen in response to prolonged and severe hypoperfusion. So if you see the septic shock, considering the other shocks or shock which I discussed in my last class, there is a profound vasoconstriction that is happening to prevent the further loss of the fluid from the body in hemorrhagic shock, or it can be just to prevent further injury to the body. But the characteristic feature of septic shock is persistent or peripheral vasodilatation. That is why it is also called as a vasodilatory shock, which results with hypotension. The characteristic of this hypotension is it is resistant to vasopressor medications. So the hypotension, mainly what we see in septic shock, is because of the failure of the smooth muscle to constrict appropriately, and in spite of elevated catecholamine levels. In spite of catecholamines, where systemic vasoconstriction takes place in other shock, this is the exception where there is no vasoconstriction happening in septic shock. There are causes of the septic shock, that is gram positive infections has been the cause in more than 50% of the cases. Gram negative anaerobes and fungus are also the potential source for infection. For the undergraduates, there may be a question that may be asked in the form of just vasodilatory shock. There are few other conditions where vasodilatory shock has been described. That is, the causes are the systemic response to the infection, or it can be non-infectious systemic inflammation. In example, it may be happening in an acute severe pancreatitis or burns where there is vasodilatory phenomena going on, severe anaphylaxis or adrenal insufficiency, prolonged or severe hypotension. Any hypotension or any shock patient who goes beyond an irreversible damage or beyond the treatment, such conditions like it can be a irreversible hemorrhagic shock, or it can be irreversible cardiogenic shock or cardiopulmonary bypass. All these patients come under a term called as vasodilatory shock, that are resistant to vasopressors. There are other metabolic conditions which cause vasodilatory shocks are carbon monoxide poisoning and severe, that is hypoxic lactic acidosis. So if a question is asked on vasodilatory shock, these are the causes that leads to vasodilatory shock. So there are few definitions that has to be understood before going for the detailed discussion of the septic shock. That is simple infection. When we term infection is whenever there is an identifiable source of microbial insult, we term it as infection. That is systemic inflammatory response syndrome. It is characterized by two or more of the following criteria has to be met to term a patient having a SIRS. that is temperature of more than 38 degrees Celsius or less than 36 degrees, that is hypothermia or hypothermia, heart rate of more than 90 beats per minute, respiratory rate more than or equal to 20 per minute with PCO2 of less than 32 millimeters of mercury, and whenever there are raised neutrophil, abnormal neutrophil count that can be in the form of more than 12,000 or less than 4,000, above or below the normal range, or more than 10% of the abnormal band forms are seen. The other definitions for are sepsis. Whenever there is sepsis, we term sepsis only when there is a identifiable, means the source of infection has been identified with patients having all the features of systemic inflammatory response syndrome. Severe sepsis we term whenever there is sepsis with one or other organ dysfunction on evaluation. Then coming to our topic, that is septic shock is defined as sepsis with cardiovascular collapse requiring vasopressor support. Septic shock definition has been changed post 2015, which I will be discussing in detail over a chart. The pathophysiology, what exactly is happening in septic shock? The septic shock, usually the disease or the pathophysiology starts at the local area, that is whenever there is an insult or injury to the particular tissue, the vascular, that is the endothelial cell swelling takes place, which leads to dysfunction and activation, that marked activation and mobilization of the inflammatory mediators towards the site of the insult. When this happens, that leads to further diminishing of the capillary perfusion that may persist even after resuscitation. High oxygens are given, that may further damage. This damage occurs classically because of the dysoxia. This is the term which has come into the septic shock that has to be addressed. Regional tissue dysoxia is classically seen. This dysoxia is nothing but mainly because of the cellular level change in the mitochondrial structure and function that will lead to abnormal metabolism of the oxygen. So that dysoxia is the second pathophysiology. That dysoxia causes a abnormal, that is DNA binding activity of the nuclear transmission factors in the cell, that leads to further production of oxygen and nitrogen radicals, which further damage the tissue. There are other things that are substances that are released during the dysoxia period, that is overexpression of the heat shock proteins, vascular endothelial growth factor receptor overexpression, and inducible nitric oxide. This is the important substance that is released because of the dysoxia. The characteristic feature of this inducible nitric oxide is it is produced in it produces very large quantities of nitric oxide in a sustained period of time. So this alone is responsible for the vasodilatory shock that is happening in septic shock, because it is a potent vasodilator. Second, it also suppresses the vascular tone and makes the vessel resistant to vasopressor agent. The other additional factors that are responsible for pathophysiology include, that is failure of the integrity of the endothelium of the microcirculation, that is the damage starts taking place at the endothelial level, which leads to leakage. This development of leakage further leads to intracellular swelling and development of extracellular fluid deficit. These are the, if you sum up, I am going to just describe like initial responses are the tissue hypoperfusion and developing cellular energy deficit, that is dysoxia. As a consequence, that leads to cellular activation and dysfunction, that leads to further imbalance of neuroendocrine and inflammatory mediators. The characteristic feature which is seen in other shock, that is sympathetic stimulation of the CVS, is totally blunted in the septic shock. So this is the pathophysiology that I have discussed in the previous class, that is trauma related as well as the bacterial products, that is lipopolysaccharides. So once your pathophysiology has been done, we have to diagnose a patient. The diagnosis entirely depends upon the clinical factors. For the clinical criteria for identifiable shock, there is certain definition that has been changed from 2015, that is the clinical criteria. Previously, if you can see from 1991 to 2000, the definition of sepsis was just severe sepsis with sepsis induced hypoperfusion. 2015, the sepsis definition changed to life-threatening organ dysfunction, which is caused by dysregulated host response. In septic shock, it was just brought as a subset of sepsis. The septic shock till 2015 was just understood as a subset of sepsis, in which underlying circulatory and metabolic abnormalities are profound, which leads to high mortality. In 2015, there are proper definition considering the patient characteristics. There are a lot of studies that has happened on the patient characteristics symptomatology when biochemical parameters were taken from independent or individual systems. Sepsis is defined as suspected documented infection with an acute increase in more than 2 SOFA points. SOFA points is nothing but a sequential organ failure assessment points that are taken, which is nothing but a proxy for organ dysfunction. So septic shock was further again defined as sepsis, that is documented infection with vasopressor therapy that is needed to maintain mean arterial pressure for more than or equal to 65 millimeters of mercury and lactate levels of more than 2 millimoles per liter. This is the proper definition for clinical diagnosis. I'll be adding few points upon the sequential organ failure assessment score, that is SOFA score, very important considering the NEET exams. This may be the topic of interest for, because this is a very upcoming topic for the discussion in septic shock. There are different scoring that is happening, 0 to 4 score, and different, all the organs are taken, and there one biochemical parameter is taken for the analysis. In respiratory, it is the FiO2 in millimeters of mercury. In coagulation, that is the platelets are taken significant, that whether the thrombocytopenia or what is the thrombocytopenia, that is taken into consideration. In liver, bilirubin is a biochemical parameter. In cardiovascular system, it is the mean arterial pressure that has to be taken as a consideration, and CNS, Glasgow Coma Score, renal, creatinine levels, and urine output as taken as the parameters. I am just briefing these things because any of these points may be asked, all except. So one or the other things that may be asked, just to highlight the SOFA score. So considering the SOFA score, whenever a patient is encountered with features of sepsis, that is if a patient is suspected of infection, a quick SOFA variables are taken. The quick SOFA variables include RMS, that is respiratory rate, mental status, and systolic blood pressure. If their quick SOFA score is more than or equal to 2, if they are not, none of the scores are above 2, then still suspect of sepsis. There is no suspicion of sepsis. The patient should be just monitored for septic SIRS features only, and he needs to be thoroughly observed and monitored for the clinical condition. If the SOFA scores of quick SOFA score is more than 2, then the patient has to be thought like he may be having a organ dysfunction, and patient should be subjected for a SOFA variables, that all the biochemical variables for individual organ has to be taken. If it is suspicion of score is more than 2, then a sepsis has to be taken into consideration, and patient should be evaluated for cardiovascular status. And if despite of fluid resuscitation his mean arterial pressure does not increase to more than 65, or serum lactate is persists for more than 2, then think the patient is in a septic shock. So it's a present criteria to diagnose a patient having a septic shock. So immediately patient found to have a septic shock should be started for aggressive search for infection, especially the surgical patient. A thorough physical examination has to be done, inspection of all wounds has to be done, because whenever there is an intra-abdominal collection or a pus that is source of infection, conservative treatment is not going to treat the patient. It has to be immediate surgical intervention in the form of a percutaneous drainage, or patient has to be explored immediately for the removal of the source of focus of infection. Evaluation of intravascular catheters and foreign bodies is needed, and obtaining appropriate culture. Immediate urine culture, blood culture has to be sent, and if at all required, abdominal findings are positive, patient has to be subject for ultra CT scan. Depending upon the required imaging has to be subjected to the patient. So what is the treatment for patient with septic shock? So important, any patient is adequate airway and ventilation has to be given, and fluid. Patient has to be resuscitated with balanced salt solution. It is always important to measure serum lactate levels. In my first class I told the serum lactate levels indicates the patient's recovery rate in any shock. It has to be less than 2 millimoles per liter. If it is more than 2 millimoles, patient is still in septic shock. Culture has to be obtained. High IV antibiotics has to be started, because its source of infection is always there. And rapid administration of 30 ml per kg crystallized is started, because of patient is in hypotension. Sometimes patient may require ventilation and vasopressor support if BP does not pick up more than 65 millimeters of mercury. In present day, it is the goal directed therapy compared to the previous standard of care where only a patient treatment was given for surviving the sepsis campaign. The present day treatment is goal directed therapy. It is nothing but important thing is adjustment of his cardiac status, adjusting the preload, afterload and contractibility. This will help in high oxygen transfer to the deceased or the hypoperfused area. That has to be started and continued for first 6 hours of hospital stay. There are plenty of benefits of this goal directed therapy, that is it increases the mean venous oxygen saturation, lowers the lactate levels and also the base deficit. These three things I have discussed in detail in my first class, that is shock general, and increases the pH, that acidosis decreases, and the 28-day mortality has been seen to decrease in the goal directed therapy. Then when a patient is in vasopressors, always patient has to be subjected for catecholamine related non-epinephrine is the first line of vasopressor that has to be given. Sometimes arginine vasopressin, a potent vasoconstrictor, can also be given if there is arterial resistance. Dobutamine is beneficial if the patient has associated cardiac dysfunction. The patient may be having hypoglycemia or insulin resistance. The present day protocol includes intensive insulin therapy. That means maintaining a blood sugar level between 80 millimeters of to 110 milligram per deciliter. Previously, insulin was managed by conventional technique, that is infusion was given of insulin only if the blood glucose raised to 215 milligram per deciliter, but it has been replaced by intensive insulin therapy, which has shown many benefits, that is mortality has been reduced significantly and the reduced episodes of septicemia about 46%, important duration of, that is reduced duration of antibiotic therapy, and important thing is decreased need for prolonged ventilatory support and renal replacement therapy. So intensive insulin therapy is the present day protocol. As ARDS, these patients definitely one or the other time they may land up in ARDS. There are mechanical ventilation has to be given to the patient with low tidal volume, with considering the which has been replaced by traditional technique where high tidal volume was given. High tidal volume means 12 milligram per kg of tidal volume was maintained, but that has been changed to mechanical ventilation with low tidal volume, which has shown significant results. And higher level of PEEP has been given in this patient with alveolar recruitment maneuvers, and patient has to be positioned in a prone position. The benefits are this decreases the mortality at higher levels and increases the number of days without ventilator. So this is the present protocol for maintaining the patient with ARDS, and there are certain adjuvant immunomodulation. Before this, I want to point the use of corticosteroids. It was a very debatable whether corticosteroids to be given to the patient. In present day textbook of Shorts says hydrocortisone can be given about 200 milligram per day for 7 days in 4 divided doses, and it is beneficial only if the patient blood pressure is less than 90 millimeters of mercury. Adjuvant modulation therapy, these have been thought to alter the host immune response, but not 100% sure how the mechanism starts. But there are point I want to highlight. This has been included in the present topic, that is anti-endocrine antibodies, anti-cytokine antibodies, cytokine receptor antagonists are there, and immunoenhancer and non-specific nitric oxide synthase inhibitor. This has been tried a lot in the present recent advances to see how it changes the host immune response to the insult that is happening to the body. So then oxygen radical scavengers also have been tried. This was the topic of septic shock in detail with the management. Hope I was able to communicate well and deliver the message. I would request you to subscribe and follow for more surgery related topics and press the bell icon. Thank you.